I'm a very plot-driven author. The stories go up and down like a roller coaster, but you can have the best plot in the world and the story still fails because you don't have characters you care about. I spend a lot of time creating in-depth characters. I want to write not an interesting book, but a compelling book.
I suoi thriller non sono soltanto puro intrattenimento letterario crime, ma interpretano anche le minacce e i pericoli realmente avvertiti dalla gente. I supereroi e i supercattivi che lei inventa servono a esorcizzare queste paure?
You bring up some very good points. The core of all of my books, most recently The Watchmaker's Hand, a Lincoln Rhyme novel, is a crime that takes place in New York that may or may not be a terrorist attack. But in addition to that, I have the other elements that you hint at, and that is the social concept of, in America, wealth disparity. And that is a separate subplot that has a payoff, a big twist at the end. All of my books have big twists, but that subplot has a big twist at the end. And I have a third subplot about relationships, and that has to do with a young police officer, Ron Pulaski, and the viewers out there who like my books, he's a very popular character. And he undergoes a terrible situation. I won't say anything more about it, but that drives the story forward too. And even the watchmaker, who's the villain, well, yes, he's the villain, but remember, he's the hero of his own story. And so when the readers follow his story, they don't want him to succeed because he has some very bad things planned, but they will be sympathetic if he does not succeed. And that, again, drives everybody to this huge climactic surprise ending in The Watchmaker's Hand in all of my books, and then another surprise ending, and yes, another surprise ending, because all of the books have at least 3, sometimes 4 surprise endings.
Come descriverebbe il personaggio dell'orologiaio? Esistono supercattivi come lui?
The Watchmaker is a character who first appeared in my Lincoln Rhyme novel, La Luna Fredda, some years ago. And he is a Moriarty kind of villain. If you know the Sherlock Holmes stories, Moriarty was his arch enemy. He'd be like Voldemort or Harry Potter for maybe some of you younger listeners. And he is someone who is devoted to evil, but not just any evil, not banal evil, but I would say highly tuned evil. He constructs his plots, whether it's murder or robbery, doesn't really even want the money necessarily, but he wants his plot to work like clockwork.
L'intero piano di Charles Hale si basava su quanto stava per accadere. A preoccuparlo non era la sicurezza, era solo che, come nel caso degli orologi, il minimo scarto rispetto alla tolleranza avrebbe fatto la differenza tra funzionante e inutile.
And he also has as his hobby the process of making watches and clocks that are the best in the world. Not to be philosophical about it particularly, but why did I do that? Because he believes in the theory that we may have heard that God is the ultimate watchmaker, that a clock could not exist, that is, the earth, society, human beings could not exist without a watchmaker up there. Now, he's not a religious man, but he wants to do the same thing for evil that the philosophers of old did for that concept of the great watchmaker. As for today's super villains, well, we see far too many of them. I won't talk about American politics, but we certainly see evil and supervillains manifest in that way, but that's true all over the world. And to some extent, my books, they are crime stories. They have twists and turns, they're roller coasters, but in all of them, I bring up social issues. In The Burning Wire, I looked at the risk of energy companies. In The Empty Chair, I looked at the dangers to the environment. In The Broken Window, I looked at the risks of data mining before anyone else was really aware of the problems of privacy we have nowadays. I think that enhances the stories, and I think it's more frightening than the Avengers kind of superheroes who we really don't believe in anyway.
Gli Stati Uniti sono attraversati da forti tensioni politiche, come ci hanno mostrato le immagini dell'attentato a Trump e l'assalto a Capitol Hill.
L'assalto al Congresso, una situazione senza precedenti nella storia americana.
Le parole di Trump sono state le parole di un incendiario che ha detto: la gente non ne può più, la gente non sopporterà più, non potete più andare avanti così, hanno fatto troppo. Dopo quelle parole, le stesse persone che lo hanno ascoltato, non tutte naturalmente, una frangia che era già venuta, chiamata da Trump, pronta a tutto, con armi e vestiti militari, ha assaltato questo palazzo alle mie spalle.
Secondo lei, il fanatismo genera mostri?
Well, certainly. It is, the reason I'm hesitating is the situation in America is extremely complex.
Scene drammatiche che riportano alla mente altri episodi di tentativi o di omicidi riusciti di presidenti americani che fanno ripiombare negli Stati Uniti in un clima di estrema tensione, di estrema divisione. Già c'era questo clima, a questo punto si traduce in violenza.
Trump è stato sfiorato all'orecchio destro e si vede la ferita all'orecchio, quindi il proiettile
e ci sono
lo ha
stati
sfiorato
numerosi spari, si sentono
in
molti
pieno.
spari nelle immagini.
And I don't blame the followers of Donald Trump. I think they were, as you might say, seduced by a strong man who deceived them. My book, The Goodbye Man, a Colter Shaw novel, deals with that very topic, a strong man who seduces people who may be vulnerable, and maybe even if they aren't vulnerable, have been told, well, we say in America, in English, sold a bill of goods, given fake information. And that is another element that I try to focus in on my books to, entertain people first and foremost. Always my books are entertainments, they're roller coasters, but let's give them a little bit of substance too.
Il malcontento sociale e le disuguaglianze tra ricchi e poveri sono temi che corrono lungo i suoi romanzi. Ci spiega perché?
The problem with wealth disparity, of course, clearly it disadvantages individuals, but it's a complicated problem because certain very wealthy individuals are responsible for innovation, for hiring many, many people and giving those people and their families much better lives. But there are certain endeavors that tend to exploit individuals, and those are the ones who are also wealthy, but we need to be more aware of. And that's my job, to the extent I talk about social issues, to make clear that there's a differentiation there. And we need to reward innovation and people who, as they say, pull themselves up by the bootstraps and become successful, the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates of the world, and those who simply exploit. And it's an important distinction, and I try to bring that out in my books.
In tutta la sua opera c'è un ritmo narrativo che fa pensare all'andamento di una grande orchestra. Come nella musica, nella sua scrittura prevale l'istinto o la tecnica?
There is both what I would say somewhat born, I'm not going to say talent, but born instinct and some work. I outline everything, I plan everything out ahead of time, and I envision the book as a piece of music, but also as a film. I've been very influenced by film and TV, so when The Bone Collector was turned into the movie with Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie, the scriptwriter said he didn't have to do much work. And when my new series, Tracker, based on the Colter Shaw books, the filmmaker took my Colter Shaw books and said, I don't have to do very much. Jeff's done most of the work for me. It's now, for 2 seasons, the #1 show in America. And largely because I plan that structure out ahead of time. And I'm also told I have a very sick and twisted imagination.
Dopo tanti anni al fianco di Lincoln Rhyme, nel 2019 si è messo alla prova con un nuovo personaggio, Colter Shaw. Com'è nata questa nuova serie?
Well, writing is not about me at all. The readers are my gods. That's 100%. I can write anything. I'm not saying I have the talent to write anything, but I am able to sit down and craft a story. But I look at my readers. Readers like Lincoln Rhyme, and I will always keep writing Lincoln Rhyme, but there are many scenarios that will not work for a forensic scientist. It's not, the scientific crime is what Lincoln does. They're called police procedurals. But I wanted the psychological drama to be told too. So I've always had in mind writing another series. And I thought for a little while about it, and I came up with the idea of a character who travels around the country looking for rewards. And that's what Colter Shaw does, and readers have responded very well. And as I mentioned, every week 18 million people tune in to watch the TV show and then, of course, buy the books too.
Le sue storie sono ricche di precisissimi dettagli tecnici sulle armi dei criminali, così come sulle strumentazioni di indagine poliziesca. Ha consulenti che l'aiutano?
No, I have no team. I do all the research myself for the important reason that I want to make sure everything's accurate, and I control that. I will talk to the police if I need to. I have friends in law enforcement and national security and the Army, and they're very helpful. But I also am curious about things, and I enjoy doing the research.
La sua carriera è molto lunga e di successo. Come riesce a essere così prolifico mantenendo sempre alta la creatività?
Well, I wake up every morning, even after 50 novels and over 100 short stories, terrified that I'm going to disappoint my readers. So I spend every waking moment, and I mean that literally almost, 10 hours a day, trying to come up with a story or a novel that will excite them and thrill them. And it takes a lot of work. It's very nerve-wracking. I had a lot more hair before I started this business, but it's well worth it.
Se potesse rinascere, farebbe altro o continuerebbe a scrivere libri?
If I could be born again at any space in time, I'd want to be William Shakespeare, because he told stories in a lyrical way, told comedies, tragedies in poetic form, and wrote his sonnets too, and was the genius of all time.